In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern, and really, I can't emphasize this enough, things look more moving forward. If you guys watch this daily, you've heard me say that probably 5 days in a row, but really everything we're seeing from the National Weather Service and the Climate Prediction Center through the month of March looks overwhelmingly warm for the central and eastern United States. A big change from what we saw overall last winter, and a big change out west from what we saw last winter as well, where things were usually warm throughout most of December, January, and February out west. We've now seen a complete flip into a much colder direction for them. So that's what we've seen overall. We're going to see numerous storms moving through, and the models keep hinting at snowfall opportunities, but as you can imagine, it's going to be very, very hard to come by in this type of a pattern. What is not going to be hard to come by is severe weather threats, where we will have numerous of those coming up over the next few weeks. Now, before we really dive into things, I want you guys to check out my most recent vlog that we just uploaded about a week ago now. We had a massive snowstorm come through. We were working on the garden. We did some everyday life stuff. We saw a kind of close to being a thunderstorm roll through that brought some pretty strong winds with it. And in our more recent vlog that's going to be coming out very soon, we actually did see a very, very intense line of thunderstorms roll through, some damaging wind. It was one of the more intense ones I can remember in at least recent memory. So some big stuff coming up on that channel, and your support means so much to me. Whether you subscribe to that channel, like the video, leave a comment below it, that all helps me out so much as I'm trying to grow that channel that I'm very, very passionate about. And it is relatively weather related, but it also, on the other hand, oftentimes is not, as it's just kind of about our lives and everything like that. So please check it out. It doesn't take too long to do. It's a very, very cool one, this most recent one. So it's in the description down below, comment down below, and you should have seen it on the top right corner of your screen as well. Let's go ahead and keep diving into things here. We see the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the National Weather Service. And as you guys know, I usually use the one from the day before, but today I'm actually recording this at 4:30 p.m. So we did get the most recent update. So this is from March 7th today, and it runs from the 13th through the 17th, and the biggest driving factor here is going to be this negative PNA out west. Very cool temperatures out west, and you can see this extends up into Alaska as well. In turn, what this does, all you need to know about it is negative PNA means cold along the west of North America, and it basically ricochets this warmth from Mexico, from the Gulf, and all of those areas up into the eastern half of the nation, and we see that in full swing effect here happening. The opposite of this happened for almost the entire winter, where we had warm temperatures along the North America coastline. We saw overall positive PNA conditions, and that forced the cold into the east. You might remember, it wasn't too long ago. It was very, very cold here in the east for a considerable amount of the winter, and it was due to the opposite type of pattern as we're seeing here. Very warm, and even the heart of it being around the mid-Atlantic, parts of the Northeast, parts of the Ohio Valley there. So this is going to be the heart of that warmth, really far above average temperatures coming up soon. As we take a look at the precipitation, we still expect really large amounts out west, as we just see storms really moving through this area frequently. We can see that a lot of this dodges the south central states, so we can imagine that a lot of this is going to be moving northward up into the northern plains, upper Midwest, Great Lakes, where we all are seeing above average precipitation there. And oftentimes we're going to see these start to develop cold fronts along them, and that is where we're going to get a lot of our precipitation down below with some of these thunderstorm events, heavier showers, and the temperatures are going to be back and forth here. Looking at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, and again, this is updated as of today, and so is the 3 to 4 week outlook that we're going to look at in a moment, but we have the 15th through the 21st here. Still very cold along the west, so still that negative PNA effect, and we can see this encourages warmth here in the east once again. Also, once again, the mid-Atlantic up through the northeast seem to be the heart of this warmth, so a very large amount of time and a very large chunk of the whole month of March is going to be above normal in these areas, almost certainly. And as we take a look at the precipitation, it starts to slow down in the west. We still are leaning above average precipitation in these areas, but it has taken a kind of lesser intensity. We can see that the south central states is still drier, so we suspect that there will still be a similar storm track here. And overall, this is going to lead to a lot of storminess underneath the strong lows. And really, what I saw from the model guidance is we get a primary low to the north a lot of the time here. And then what we see happen is the cold front develops, and that develops storms, but also we're getting a lot of secondary lows where we have kind of like a second center of not as low as your primary low, but still relatively low pressure. And this allows for a column of heavy precipitation to develop. So I expect situations like that to occur here throughout the month of March as well. Finally, let's take a look at the 3 to 4 week temperature outlook here. And this one is brand new as of today. They come out every Friday. And what we see here is this is going to run from March 22nd through April 4th. So this will get us through the end of March. We can see equal chances in the west here, but we do see below normal temperatures for Alaska, which is going to tell me that we are leaning negative PNA here. Even though we're not seeing it over the western United States, the west coast of North America overall is experiencing some below normal temperatures. And this is just enough for us to see some warmth throughout the plains, Midwest, Great Lakes, Deep South, Southeast, Mid-Atlantic, Northeast here, Ohio Valley, all of these areas looking above normal all the way through the end of March and into the beginning of April. This year, as far as a weather year, has just gone fantastic in my opinion. I mean, it was a cold winter and it was snowy for most folks. And now we're transitioning into spring, and the one downside to cold and snowy winters throughout my life is that the springtime just can't come. It just will not come soon enough, and it just lags and lags and lags behind until you're in April and it's still cold. This year we had a cold and snowy winter for most, like I said, and now we're seeing spring just suddenly appearing as soon as we enter into March, and I just can't write it up. That's perfect to me. So above normal temperatures in the east overall. Looking at the precipitation, my one gripe with this still is that this just looks like a La Nina, like the traditional basic La Nina precipitation map. So is there some truth to this? Probably. I mean, we've had drier conditions already in this area, and we suspect it to continue, so you can lean that way. Also, these areas do lean above, and so do these areas, so it's like everything kind of checks out, but the problem is that we've been seeing above normal precipitation for all of these areas, even down into the deep south, and the below normal precipitation has been a little bit more secluded to the south central. It makes sense that they would call for this, though, because, looking this far out, especially with precipitation, how can you even really come up with something other than what you know, which is that we're in a semi La Nina pattern? So it makes sense, but I suspect that this will look quite a bit different once we get there. Here's the past 7 days, so the first 7 days of meteorological spring. We have seen some colder temperatures along the southwest coast. We've seen a lot of warmth throughout the plains and Rockies here. And then the east has been kind of hit or miss, kind of just near average. But we know that moving forward, this is going to change in a big way. This is just the first 7 days here of March and of meteorological spring. Looking at the European model, we do have a weaker low over parts of the Midwest here, currently near Missouri, maybe even moving into Illinois by the time you're watching this video. And this is bringing some showers to the north of it. Not only rain showers, but there is some snow in there and probably some mixed precipitation in between those two areas. Definitely not a major system whatsoever, but I just wanted to mention that. As we keep going towards the evening tonight, we start to see a little bit more precipitation going for some of the Four Corner states and into Texas and Oklahoma, where I do suspect we could have some thunderstorms in here. We do have a marginal risk of severe weather somewhere for Texas, and it might even include a little bit of Oklahoma as well for the day today. As we, or the night tonight, I should say, and by tomorrow afternoon, this is going to expand to where we're looking at kind of the Gulf Coast and areas of Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas with that kind of very, very slim severe weather chance. We do see some snowfall happening now for Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas as well. Even a little bit of Oklahoma and Kansas there. Not much happening outside of this, so let's just keep going towards Sunday. And this will be the final day of this event, and we will see a marginal risk again, especially here for Florida and Georgia, when that one's basically coming to an end. By Monday, it is mostly done. We can see that it is now becoming a bit of a coastal low, 1,001 millibar there. We do see some southeast precipitation. You are on the northwest side of the low by that point. So I'm suspecting that this is just going to be plain rainfall with no real thunderstorms in there. There could be some, but I don't suspect a major thunderstorm event to come out of this. The main threat for thunderstorms will be offshore and for the southern half of Florida here, where there is a little bit of a cold front look Definitely a little bit more amped in those areas with more instability. As we keep going towards Tuesday the 11th, there's really nothing to note here. So we're just going to kind of move past it. Wednesday the 12th, almost the same thing, except we do have some major storm systems moving on shore the west of Canada and the United States here, where we're seeing snowfall and rainfall respectively based on elevation and your proximity to the coast. As we take this towards Thursday, we see this area of storms expanding and becoming worse here for areas of the west. Snowfall for all three of your major mountain ranges out there, rainfall happening in all of the states out there as well. Just a really intense system moving through for kind of the midpoint next week. As we keep going here, I'm going to take us towards Friday. And this is when things get really, really interesting. We have this now 983 millibar low pressure center over top of the Rockies, or past them, I guess I should say. It is fully moved over, and we're seeing precipitation behind it in the form of snowfall mostly, but some rainfall for lower elevation areas. And this will likely be our next severe weather threat. We already have our next system for the Northwest as well. So you have system number 1 and system number 2 over here along the Northwest, where we're seeing snowfall and rainfall here with that new storm moving on shore. I want to move a couple of hours forward because already by the time we're reaching 2 a.m., and this is going to be moving into Saturday, March 15th, this low is a 982 over Kansas. We have this very intense cold front look with a very intense warm front look as well. And this is going to be your primary area to watch for severe weather and thunderstorms from Iowa south into Missouri, eastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, parts of Arkansas, northeastern Texas, and maybe even parts of Louisiana. We would be watching for severe weather in that case. We also see that there is numerous areas dealing with snowfall out west still by this point. So really, really a snowy pattern to say the least. As we reach towards Saturday afternoon, we can see a lot of this severe weather threat is going to be on the move eastward for the deep south. Here, we see the deep south, parts of the Midwest and Ohio Valley, and even the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, all dealing with some chance of thunderstorms and severe weather. Maybe some isolated thunderstorm risks happening here from Pennsylvania and New Jersey southward through Virginia and into the Carolinas. Just activity starts to really, really pick up here later on in the pattern. And especially here by Sunday afternoon, we see our primary low is right there by the Great Lakes, and we have all of this activity out ahead of things. Again, that secondary low below it, if you listen to the beginning of the video. So we're seeing that a lot on the models here. And this is just a ton of precipitation, and likely, I would say, especially in the southeastern corridor of all of this, and probably I would indicate this area here would be the area to watch for potential severe weather. We get a lot of dynamics close to the low right here, but also a lot of that humidity and moisture and warmth here in the southeast. That's going to be two areas to watch in particular, but really you can't rule out thunderstorms and severe weather anywhere east of that low. So it's going to be maybe an interesting situation by next weekend. As we take a look at Monday, we can see that that low will move through and the cold front will as well. And we end up actually with a very cold day here, perhaps for Monday the 17th, where we get this trough just diving southward here in the eastern states. Some snowfall showers for parts of the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and Mid-Atlantic and Northeast here. Just a really, really deep cold shot in between just super warm temperatures overall. It's interesting. By Tuesday the 18th, we're already warming back up as we can see this flow of warmth and humidity is just surging in, especially to the central states, but it is going to start to intrude on the eastern states as well. And interestingly enough, I mean, we've had activity out west all of this time, but we see a 992 in eastern Colorado, and all of a sudden this is our next low to watch, Tuesday the 18th. We can see by the time we're reaching Wednesday, we really don't get much of anything out of it. It's actually interesting. We see this one move all the way across the west, bringing lots of precipitation. It moves to the plains, and it just never really gets its act together. I still think this is going to be one to watch for. It's in a prime location. We have snowfall to the north of it here. It's in a prime location here. We have a serious warm bubble here to the east of it, and that is going to bring a lot of humidity, a lot of warm temperatures. Overall, just really, really sufficient temperatures and everything for thunderstorm development. And then likely we could develop a cold front behind all of this. It's bringing in the cold and dry air. I think that the dynamics are here that if this becomes a higher precipitation, low pressure system, this could be really something to watch. But for now, this model is not picking up on it whatsoever. Although we do get a much weaker low, isn't even really strong enough to pop up here, but we have about 1,008 millibars here. Some snowfall to the central and southern Rockies there, even extending into Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri. And it looks like we definitely have some thunderstorm activity in here. So maybe this is our next one to watch close to the 20th. As we keep going towards Friday afternoon, we could see some showers and thunderstorms around for the southeast corner of the nation, but no major low to work with here, although there is a lot of humidity and warmth to work with. And that one goes ahead and just kind of sticks in place. This could be an interesting situation. I can recall in years past, we would get these kind of stationary fronts set up over the southeast just like this, and they actually end up, instead of typically sweeping, where you can imagine the storms are just kind of progressively moving eastward or southeastward here, what you actually see is that the storms are moving along it just like this. And the reason that happens is because we have this warm push from the southeast and we have this cold push from the northwest, and they're kind of meeting right along that stationary front. And you can imagine that equal push from each side just kind of forces things to move along that point of conflict. And in this case, it would be to the northeast there. So very interesting. If we do get a setup like this could be a heavy, heavy rainmaker, and also some decent thunderstorms in there as well in situations like this. I don't know if I've ever seen one in March set up that way, but definitely April, May, and into the summer, that is something that does happen. So perhaps that's what this model is trending at happening, perhaps later on in the pattern. Regardless, we're at hours 360, so the odds of everything coming, and happening exactly this way is pretty low, but definitely interesting to think about. As we take a look at the GFS model, I want to look for differences like we always do. And I mean, we get our first little deep south storm. That one moves through, and then precipitation does make it quite a bit further northward into Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina here. It would just be the difference between dry and maybe a bit of rain. Not really anything in the way of severe weather or snow for sure. So just the difference between, again, cloudy with no rain or seeing some rainfall. So nothing too crazy. We do see that we get this same intense low, maybe a bit more intense here, quite a bit more intense, by about the 15th. 975 millibar low pressure center here, Nebraska and Kansas. It's right over you. And we see this cold front swirling around that low. Very strong low, 975. That is intense. And we get this warm front way up to the north here. So this is infusing that humidity and warmth into this whole system here. It forces much more warm air to the east of this low. We're still getting this cold and much less humid air moving in from the west. And this would create a very dynamic severe weather threat for parts of the Midwest, Northern Plains, kind of like the lower Midwest and down into the deep south. We would really need to watch this closely. Again, we're kind of starting out Friday night into Saturday. Here's Saturday afternoon. And we have this 985 here, but we also have a 997 secondary low. We talked about that earlier on. And this creates a threat of potential severe weather for all of these areas out to the east of that main low. Also very heavy snowfall for the Northern Plains, by the way, as well. Saturday the 15th here. Sunday the 16th, we see that a lot of this potential severe weather is now located over the deep south, into the Ohio Valley, parts of the Mid-Atlantic even. And again, out ahead of it, we have so much warmth and humidity that we're even getting isolated thunderstorm activity along these eastern areas. Your front is way back here. We're seeing that all happen out ahead of things. As we keep going, that front does arrive approximately by Monday afternoon on the 17th. The timing is a little bit different between these two models. And again, the biggest difference is going to be if you're getting these storms during your high temperatures of the day or if it's in the middle of the night during your lows. Obviously, the high temperatures are going to increase the chance of severe weather and thunderstorms. If it's during the middle of the night, oftentimes it's going to lessen the risk just a little bit. So definitely things to think about there. As we keep going, we do get this next low pressure system here. This one's quite interesting as well. 994 here between Indiana and Ohio. It is 300 plus hours out, so definitely with a grain of salt, you need to take this. But we get some snowfall here for the Great Lakes and parts of the Midwest. The bigger story here, though, would be this thunderstorm and severe weather threat again for the deep south into the southeast. Again, that's going to be Wednesday into Thursday and even into Thursday night here. We see parts of the Mid-Atlantic, I'd say the lower Mid-Atlantic mostly. We always draw an imaginary line with this low. Everywhere underneath is the biggest threat for thunderstorms and severe weather. So we would be talking mostly parts of the lower Mid-Atlantic down into Virginia, North Carolina, and perhaps South Carolina. Pretty similar to our actually previous threat. Probably not as intense, but definitely location-wise, that is reminiscent. And then we look like we're shaping up to get maybe our next storm system moving into this area or developing in this area by the time we're at the end of the model run. But again, hours 384 hardly even matters at this point. When we look at the total precipitation after all of that, I mean, we're dealing with large amounts out west still and hit or miss in the east, but definitely there's a lot of areas above average. And the areas that are dealing with a little bit below average, it's not too bad. Everybody gets their fair share here. So really not shabby one bit. When we look at the anomalies, the west is above, the plains and midwest are below, and then parts of the east are above, parts of the east are below, kind of hit or miss. Total snowfall in the European model, we do end up with huge amounts out west with that continuous storminess and below average temperatures prevailing. Parts of the plains, Midwest, and Great Lakes, even into the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, do see snowfall, so I guess I'll draw this a little further south. But that is, again, hit or miss. Very hard to come by with these warmer overall patterns with a little bit of cold windows in there sometimes. It's really going to take a long shot for us to end up getting anything major out of this as far as snowfall is concerned. The GFS model says, hey, I mean, there might be. It shows, parts of the plains here into the Midwest, especially the upper Midwest, into the Great Lakes, even parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. They're seeing some more major snowfall. Definitely take it with a grain of salt. The West still does phenomenal here. And when we look at the Storm Prediction Center outlooks, I just want to walk you through this. Day 1 is going to be for today on Friday the 7th, and we see that there is a general thunderstorm risk here for Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, the outskirts there of this darker green area for Texas and Oklahoma, and then a bit of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. All of these areas are where we expect general thunderstorms, but of course, anything's possible, so please heed every watch warning and advisory in there, as severe weather cannot be completely ruled out, of course. When we look at this darker green area, mostly for just Texas, we see that this is a level 1 marginal risk where we expect isolated severe weather to perhaps occur. And as we move towards day 2, we're going to see some similar stuff. I mean, the general thunderstorm risk areas in the lighter greens, and then your darker green from Texas eastward through into a bit of Arkansas, all of Louisiana, and then like the southern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and then into the Florida Panhandle. Again, isolated severe weather possible in there. And then for day 3, which will be for Sunday, March 9th, we could see this threat mostly moves into northern Florida, southern Georgia, and a bit of southeastern Alabama. With all that being said, be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.